Just before I jump into it, guys, just so you know, the reason why I kind of haven't been reviewing anything for a while is there will be a new season of Australian Survivor, and I've been throwing all of my energy into applying for that, and it's still a work in progress. We'll see how it goes. They haven't finalized everything yet, but that's why I haven't been making these videos, because I've been focusing on applying. But great news, because we all wanted there to be another Australian Survivor, and there will be another Australian Survivor, and who knows, I might get on it. Maybe, we'll see. It's still very early days. But let's get into the finale of Survivor Season 35. Healers, Hustlers, Heroes. Probably one of the best, or at least one of the top 5 seasons of Survivor I think they've ever made. This was so great, and it was wonderful to see a final, even say like a final 5 or 6, or maybe even a final 10, where everybody was a strong player, and especially our final 3. All 3 of these guys were top-notch players, and I love that. That's exactly how Survivor should be. As you guys know in my previous reviews of different episodes, I don't like it when weak people gang up on strong. I think strong people should win, and they've tweaked the rules a bit in order to facilitate that, which I think is brilliant, but we'll save that when we get to it. So, the final episode begins with Ben immediately getting back from tribal and not even going to sleep. He just goes right out into the jungle and starts looking for his idol, and I gotta say, I thought this was pointless, because when someone plays an idol at tribal, they don't immediately hide it that night. I'd imagine it would take them time to find a new hiding place. They'd usually do it the next day. So I thought it was a little strange and futile that he was doing it now, but I guess not, because he did eventually find the idol. He looked all night long, and then he found it in the morning as the sun was coming up, so maybe they did just wait until the next morning to hide it anyway. But it just goes to show, while everyone else was sleeping, he was playing the game. This seems to be how Survivor is going now. It's just whoever's willing to commit more to the game is the one who wins. And it occurred to me as I was watching this that it's probably occurred to the other players there that they should spend all night looking for an idol, but they thought, none of them really should worry about it. And I thought perhaps that should be a new rule, that if you're imagining a certain scheme, assume that someone else is already imagining the same scheme, so you better make sure you do it first. Because that was Ben's kind of play. That was the way he sort of sold himself as well at the final tribal, of he was 2 steps ahead of everyone else. And I think that's really the way to go. And while Ben was off searching for that idol, Chrissy says to Mike and Devin and Ryan, I think we should all just not hear him out. Just don't even hear him out, to cut off any possibility of them doing any strategic play with them. And then the next day, what does she do? She goes and hears him out. So she tells everyone else to not hear him out, but then she goes and does it. That's still kind of a good move as well. But of course, it doesn't go very far, because Ben's just, he knows it's nonsense, and it is nonsense. She's not genuinely going to take Ben to the end, he knows that. But she's keeping her options open, and she's trying every avenue, which is what you need to do. But after Chrissy wins immunity, and also a reward, I think that shifted the dynamics a little bit within the tribe, because up until then, everyone's got the target so much on Ben that he is the one you got to go after. After she win what was like a 3rd immunity at this time, I think that changed. I think it now puts, in terms of gameplay, it puts her and Ben about even, I would say. He's found multiple immunity idols. She's won multiple immunity idols. They've both schemed. They've both plotted. There's only 2 things that separate them, which is social play and their story. And that's going to come back in when we analyze their final sort of pitch to the jury. But Chrissy takes Devin and Mike on the reward, and they hatch their scheme to use Chrissy's fake idol, the idol that no longer works, to fake out Ben so that he doesn't bother looking for the real idol because he thinks it's already been found. A good plan in theory, but of course Ben was 1 step ahead of them. He knows that can't be a real idol, or it's a defunct idol or something like that, because he's already found the real one. However, if I was Ben, I'd be wondering, like, is that a super idol? It looks very distinct and different. I mean, is that a super idol that could cancel his idol, or can it do something else? I mean, that's what I'd be worried about. That's what I'd be worried about. I don't know what you could do about it, but I'd be definitely concerned about that. But Ben's acting skills that he used back when he was pretending to be the dethroned king, he uses them again to appear demoralized when he sees Chrissy with her fake idol, and Ryan seems to buy it. He seems to believe that Ben thinks it's real. Devin, however, his gut is telling him something is not right. His gut's telling him Ben might actually have an idol. So he makes a very good decision of writing down Mike's name just in case an idol is played. We found out later on when Jeff interviewed Mike after he was voted out that Mike had the exact same idea of voting for Devon, but he didn't do it. Again, if you have an idea, assume someone else is having the same idea, so do it first. That could be the new golden rule of Survivor. Right after, don't tell anyone about your idol, which is, Ben is the only person in this game who seemed to respect that rule. So Mike got voted out. Kind of sad. He was an interesting character to have on the show, but he was not by any stretch of the imagination a mastermind player or anything. And he did actually mention in this, he said, I don't really need the money. I guess he's already a millionaire or he's already rich because he's a doctor or what have you. He says, I don't really need the money. I just kind of want the title of winning. Well, there are others who do need the money more. So I'm kind of glad that Dr. Mike didn't end up winning $1 million because he doesn't need it. And there are others who do need it. So I'm kind of glad he got voted out. But that final immunity challenge, what a nail biter that was. That was unbelievable. That was so close. Ben came like twice within just a mustache hair away from winning, and then boom, it collapses all over again. And Chrissy, credit to her, she did really well as well, and she eventually got it. But wow, was that close. That could have gone either way, that challenge. And it was devastating for Ben, and I felt really bad for him. And this is the reason why I always say that I hate that the weak people gang up on the strong, because in any other season this would have been the end of Ben, but it wasn't because of the twist that they threw in later. But in any other season this would have been the end for Ben. And how unfair would that have been, that he has gone all this way, he has done all this amazing gameplay, he stayed out all night finding idols, he's been switching alliances and playing the dethroned king and doing all these amazing things, only to get cut down by a bunch of losers at the end who are just not as good as him. That would have been a real travesty of justice. But thank the Survivor gods that they brought in this new twist where the person who wins the last immunity can select one person to go with them to the final three and the other two do the fire making challenge and the winner gets on the final three. I love that. I love that. If that twist had not been in the game, Ben would not have won. He would not have made it to the final three, and it would have been a huge travesty of justice. But I love this. I love it when Survivor, like, sometimes there's options, sometimes there's twists in the game that don't allow, you can't do anything about it. You can't do anything about it. I don't like that. I always like the players to have their own fate in their own hands, and that's exactly what this allows. This was a huge problem in the game at the end here, where really strong players could get cut down by just one mistake. So giving them this one other chance to make it through is so wonderful, and I'm glad that, as Jeff mentioned, this is going to be a regular, recurring part of the game. It absolutely should be. And hats off to whoever came up with that idea, because it's a fantastic idea. Now, Chrissy knows that it's going to come down to either Ryan or Devon making fire with Ben. Ryan's hopeless at that, so it has to be Devon. So she tells Devon about what the secret advantage is so he can practice his fire making skills to beat Ben. Oh boy, Devon, why do people do this? Why do people chop at the flint with the machete? You're not supposed to hack at it. You're supposed to scrape the blade of the knife across the flint. That's what produces the sparks. If you chop at it like it's a piece of wood, it breaks. And lo and behold, Devon's breaks when he's trying to practice. Don't chop at it. Just scrape the blade across. And Devon is like, oh, I guess that means it was meant to be. No, it just means you're not doing it right. And of course, Ben, Mr. Marine, absolutely eviscerates Devon in the fire making challenge, and it was a wonderful moment. It was a wonderful moment to see Ben, who's so low, and then that last, Survivor gods just throw him that last little bit of hope, and he's like, boom, I'm gonna do this, and he does. It's great. It's so great. It really is. So our final three being Chrissy, Ben, and Ryan. Weirdly enough, Ryan is kind of being brought along as the GOAT, although he's really not a GOAT. I mean, I think in any other season of Survivor, he probably could have won it, but because there were so many big players, he's kind of the equivalent of a GOAT now, but it's really not right to call him a GOAT. He's not a GOAT, but they brought him along because they both know they can beat him, or Chrissy brought him along because they know they can beat him. And Ryan, I told you, I warned you, way back in, I think, episode 4 or 5 or something like that, when you finally got to reveal to Chrissy that you're the one who sent her that idol on day one, I told you, you're a brain. The biggest threat to a brain like you is a bigger brain. Chrissy is a bigger brain. You cannot win this game if she's in it. You cannot win this game if you're sitting next to her at the end. I told you, you have to take out Chrissy, but you didn't listen, did you? You didn't listen. Well, Mr. Armchair Expert here, who's never actually been on the show, you should have listened to me. Now, I'm not too sure about this format of like the open jury where everyone can ask questions on top of each other and where they structure it in terms of the questions need to be themed off the outwit, outplay, outlast categories, like the strategic, the social, and the physical aspects of the game. I'm not 100% sold. I mean, I like that lots of different people can ask questions at once. It makes it easier to get to the truth. It's a lot harder to sort of lie and twist things around. Like, the truth will come out when you're being like cross-examined so much like that. And I kind of like that it does sort of focus the questions on the 3 aspects of gameplay, but I'm not 100% sure. I still like that individual one-on-one questioning where the drama kicks in and people can like get even at people who took them out previously. Like, I like that. I do. I like that bit of drama. And it seems in this format it wouldn't really allow for that anymore. So, yeah, I don't know. There's a lot I like about it. There's a lot I'm kind of not too sure about. But poor old Ryan got railroaded here, and he's a good speaker, and he made the best case he could, saying that he played the way that he knew he could do. He knew he wasn't going to win a lot of challenges. He knew he's not going to be like the big man around camp. So he played the social and strategic game, which is all true, but they also make a lot of valid points where it's like, well, you could have like tried to help out around camp a bit more. And when they're all throwing those accusations at him, the entire jury, and Ben and Chrissy are also like, yeah, you were talking about iced tea the whole time. And Chrissy's like, yeah, you hardly ever went and got water for anyone. Yeah, poor old Ryan. And in the end, the only person who voted for him was his old buddy Devon, they were kind of rivals for a while, so that's strange. So it was really between Ben and Chrissy, and I gotta say, seeing how Chrissy was just like speaking circles around Ben, because she's like a really good speaker, she's got the gift of the silver tongue. Ben, not so much. You know, he struggles a bit with the social stuff, partly because of all his PTSD and all that. So she definitely came off smelling like roses in that final tribal. She could like throw out info about everyone, showing that she knew them all. Like, she did really, really well. And at the end of it, I was actually thinking that she was going to win it, but she didn't. And that's something very interesting. And I think, because as I mentioned, when you look at the gameplay between Chrissy and Ben, I think they're about even in terms of like how many immunities she won, how many immunity idols he found, how close they were in like, especially that last immunity, the level of scheming, the level of control they both had over the game. They're about even in all those regards. The only 2 differences is she was much better at the social aspect than he was, and he has a much better story than she does, because he's got the whole heroic, I'm a Marine fighting PTSD. That's a great story. It really is. It's fantastic TV, and I'm sure the jury got caught up in that. But Chrissy's side as well, in her being a much better socially savvy player, I mean, she has an interesting story too, in that like he's the hero Marine, she's the hero mom. But of course the hero Marine's just sort of more intriguing. No put downs to hero moms there, I'm just sort of saying that's the way it turned out in the tribal. Like, Ben's game is more dramatic because his back was up against the wall so much of the time, but when you really think about it, his back was up against the wall because he played such a terrible social game compared to Chrissy. Chrissy was much better at the social game, so she didn't actually need to run around like a chicken with her head cut off and find idols all throughout the night. She didn't need to do that because she was a better social game. It's a little bit like if there were 2 mountain climbers climbing a mountain, and one of them, he keeps slipping and falling over the edge, and he's hanging off the edge of the cliff by his fingertips and manages to claw his way up and like avoid death and then finally make it to the top of the mountain. Now that's a dramatic story. That's a very dramatic story, but that mountain climber is not better than the other mountain climber who never slipped over the edge of the cliff because they just knew not to put a foot wrong. Like, the better mountain climber is the one who avoids those problems. And Ben, he had a more dramatic story because he had to overcome all these obstacles, but a lot of them were self-inflicted. If he had been a better socially savvy player like Chrissy was, he wouldn't have needed to do a lot of that stuff. So looking at the result between these two, since their gameplay, I believe, was about even, and she had the social credit on her side, but he had the better story, the hero's journey, the Marine with PTSD, it was really a battle between, okay, if 2 people are equally matched in terms of gameplay, what's what's more important? And the answer is, it's story. People voted for Ben, even though, as I said, many of his problems were self-inflicted. She didn't need to overcome these obstacles. But story trumped social savvy and gameplay. And I think that's something that really speaks to future seasons in how people are going to need to assess threats, because previously I think this has only really come out here because very rarely do we have two players who are so strong and so similar or equally matched in terms of gameplay. Often there's like one good player and a couple of goats. But this shows, as far as I'm concerned, that when you have two players who are equally matched in terms of gameplay, the person who's going to win is the one with the better story. So if I end up getting on Australian Survivor, one of the things I'm now going to factor in how I choose which, like the hierarchy of threats of who to take out, one of the factors is going to have to be who has a better story than me. This is why Survivor's interesting. The game keeps evolving, it keeps changing. See, this was never a problem before because it was much more difficult for multiple strong players to make it to the end. Now with this game change, we are going to get more strong players making it to the end, so you need to take out the ones with better stories than you. So what can I say? Fantastic season, fantastic result. I absolutely love that Ben won because that's great TV, he's got a great story. But I do think we need to give a lot of credit to Chrissy. I mean, wow, what a player. Really, what a player. That's incredible. And I hope she can come back and play again. I really do, because I do think she deserves to win just as much as Ben does. But in the end, there can only be one winner. So guys, now that the Survivor season is over, I guess on the channel here I'm going to get back into what I originally started the channel with, which is breaking down strategy from events in history. And sometimes TV shows like Game of Thrones, just anything we can get strategy from. Of course, Survivor's like a strategy feast. It's a buffet of strategy. But yeah, there's a few interesting moments throughout history that we can get some good lessons from. So look forward to those. And until next time, I will see you guys in the comments.